Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Lara May, a clinical pharmacist specializing in functional medicine, as well as a certified yoga teacher and Reiki master. I run a truly integrative health coaching practice encompassing functional medicine lab testing, yoga and meditation, and a sprinkling of Reiki energy medicine. Join me here on Light Body Radio to break through your health plateau and come into alignment with your natural vitality. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and I have with me a Freedom Illuminator Embodiment Queen today. Her name is Gao Motsemme, and I hope I got the last name right. So some call her a visionary doula. She helps individuals finally break free from generational toxic relationships, imprints, and curses, connect to their highest selves, and cultivate healthy, meaningful, and fulfilling connections so they can radiate true confidence, crush it in the boardroom, the bedroom, and beyond. And this, she does this with her 90-day program, the African Ancient Quantum Medicine Methodology. She is from Botswana, and in Southern Africa, she has resided in Germany for 10 years, and she has a background of more than 15 years in accounting, and things really shifted for her when she went through a judicial injustice that separated her from her children for 5 years, and she found herself and her purpose through this heartbreaking situation where she felt completely lost and powerless. But through her work, she reunited with her children without any lawyers or mediators. And previously, she had says she's gone through 7. So I'm welcome. I'm excited to have you here. And so tell me a little bit about your journey, but how you came to be like this very much, embodiment queen. And this sounds like this a very amazing and powerful practitioner.
Thanks for having me. One thing that I love to do first before we start is to greet people, and I do that in my native language, and that is Dumelang, Dumelang, Lokai. And Dumelang in direct translation is agree, So as we are here gathered by the one and only Dr. Lara, the question is, when you are showing up, what are you agreeing to? And Lokai is, where are you locate yourself? And that is us coming here and being fully present rather than being scattered. So that is my greetings. And back to your question. Yeah, I was just, actually, I can't really say I was just a normal child. I was not, but being weird is when you grow up knowing certain things. Being weird was nothing sexy. It was, I don't want to be weird. And I was that child who didn't want to be weird. And by not wanting to be weird, I denied part of myself, who I am, what really lights me up. And as a child, actually, I didn't even know this light me up. It was just like I just wanted to not know certain things because I didn't know what to do with them. So I ended up being in accounting, and I can't really say, even when it comes to careers, I come from a very traditional family. Both of my parents were farmers, so there's no kind of like, oh, I'm looking up to my father who is a nurse or whatever. No, we're just farmers. And for me to end up being an accountant, it's something that I just loved the word accounting. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go with that. And I just enjoyed it. And I did that. And it's funny because as a child, I didn't want to have children. That was just me, and I think it's because of the dysfunction that I was going through at home. So I didn't want to have children. And I remember one of the days, I think I was around 14, 15, my mom had a conversation with me, like, you really have to rethink what you're saying, because I said it often, so she was like, you don't have to say that. To have children is a good thing, So I went through life trying to run away from myself, drinking and all that. That is a way to numb, that intuition that is coming through,
Sure.
But the funny part is, even the time when I was out drinking almost every weekend, there was a time when I would feel disconnected, especially when nothing is even coming through my dreams. My dreams were kind of like that lighthouse. Whenever
Mm,
I know that I'm connected with the other side, I'll know through my dreams. And when I don't dream or anything, I know something doesn't feel right. So I'll stop and then focus on me reconnecting again. And then as an accountant, I didn't love what I was doing. I just like the money and the identity part. And I believe most of us can relate where you kind
mm-hmm.
of like, because I was one of those parents where I had children outside of wedlock, but on the other hand, I was just happy I've got my children. They brought out that mother within me that I didn't even know I had, because I was the kind of child who, when my sisters had children, my sisters were older, I was the kind of child who didn't even bother to go see this newborn baby or whatever. That's just like how, for me and children, we're kind of like disconnected one or the other.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, yeah. So I had children, and then everything in my life shifted. They were like the first of everything. But the funny part is, because I get to look back now when I'm here, is even those times when I thought I'm doing everything for my children, I was doing everything at the level of what we are taught, basically, the grinding. And I was present, physically present mother as a single mother, but on the other
Mm-hmm.
hand, I was also absent, because
Mm-hmm.
most of the time as an accountant, I was at work. At times I would come home at 2 a.m. and in the morning I have to get my children ready and they have to go. But
Right.
things shifted now when, after I lost my corporate job, and then I went through, actually my mom passed, my younger brother had a near-death accident, and then the whole trial started with my children. And as I walked in court, I still walked with my head high, like this is an easy case. But when I came out of it, I didn't know what the heck happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning of me waking up to the truth. And like you say, when you say embodiment queen, I grew up knowing, like, there was this part of me that just knew who I was. But on the other hand, when you know who you are as a child, like that confidence and being opinionated and all that, it's not something that is accepted in the society. Now
Not
looking at
normally.
where, yeah, looking
Yeah,
at where I
especially from
come
a
from.
woman.
Exactly. So it was always that question, who do you think you are? My mom always said, you are not like my other children. So along the way, you start questioning, doubting. And
Mhm.
I kind of forgot. Yeah.
Well, that's so fascinating. And, I think we all go through these different pieces of our journey to sort of bring us back to ourselves as well. So despite the challenges and, the trials and tribulations, you came out the other side. And so tell us now, like, I want to bring this conversation like really into your work. And from what I've read, you work a lot with, transforming and transmuting generational trauma. And so, can you tell us a little bit about that?
hmm Yeah. What I actually, this also started, I would say it started with me, even when I started embracing myself as a healer. And I see people doing what they're doing. And a part of me is like, oh, I want to do that, like having a religious background. I was like, it would be
Mhm.
nice to channel angels, because that's what is accepted. And I was just
Mhm.
excited about that. So, but I'd learned trying to do this, I was not fully grasping what my gift is
Mhm.
until one day I was told, you gotta go back to your roots. Go back to your roots. And I went to my roots, which there is all this chaos that I've been creating my life from. It took me going back to realize that all this did not start with me. But the good thing is, as much as we are afraid at times to go back to our roots and find what is there, we want to deal with the leaves and all that, but yet the grounding part is those roots. When you have a strong roots, no matter what is happening, you are anchored, you are grounded, you are connected. So when I
Mhm.
went there, as much as it was scary, clearing all the crap that we are scared of and all that, that's when I can't, like, this gift just emerged. So my gift is an inherited gift from my ancestral lineage, because as much as there is all these generational cases, imprints, and patterns, there is also a gift that is there, but you gotta go and clear all this that is standing on the way. So with this is an inherited gift, but talking about the generational patterns, as I said
Mm-hmm.
in my case, and that's the what I also see in clients, in clients when I connect with someone, I specialize in the body consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
so the body will just tell me what is happening, and I know where this is stored, whether it's coming from the mother, the father, whether it's ancestral. It's what I'm just picking up when I trace. It can start with maybe someone is having a migraine, maybe someone is having, like, at times the heart, but the heart mostly will, when it's severe, those emotional pains that people do not deal with, eventually you feel the numbness of the whole arm and all that. Yeah. So I can start with that. Then when I trace it, it ends up with the generational patterns. And what people don't realize is that there is what we know consciously. Okay, I'm in a relationship with this guy. He's a narcissist, and all the labeling and all that. And then I hate this guy. I continue to find someone else. Give you an example with me, who went through this situation back home in Botswana in Africa. Somebody else. I had two children with this guy. He had alcoholic issues and all that. And then I find someone totally in a different continent, and we meet, we get married, and only to realize that I'm dealing with the same same story, right?
Right.
So that's the thing. Where is this coming from? You can look at yourself and blame yourself at times. I understand, even in the spiritual communities or self-development, where, oh, you created that, and when we look at it, we can look at it as an individual to say, oh, I created it, then there is something wrong with me or something like that. And we
Mm,
forget that when you talk about the I, it's I, as in like our ancestors and all those. We are bigger than just the human that is here.
mm,
So when you go deep, you realize that you are creating from the imprints that you are born into, which often starts even with the name. We are born. Here I am. I'm using Motsemme. That's the same name that I was born into on my father's surname. And there is also my mother's surname. There is all these parents, all that has been happening for a long time that I was born into, and I buy into that. And there is what I've also seen, because at times it's not even about what we see, but it's what is happening that is not spoken about. And we are
mhm.
creating from this imprint. And we're looking just on the surface, which is like a tiny bit of what is really influencing what we are creating and how we are creating. So the generational patterns, they repeat, and at times they skip a certain generation and they still come through. So that's what I'm realizing, that even when something happens, it didn't start with us. We gotta look at, where are we creating from? What is my name? What imprints does my name contain? And as women, when we get married, we often change the name and we use our husband's name. And we are also tapping into the imprints of our husbands and whatever that it entails. And also, one
Mm,
thing that I also love to even talk about is also the sexual energy. Because when you look about, there are two people, a man and a woman, who end up meeting, and then they make this child.
right.
But before those people even happen to meet, they also met other people. So when you look at the link that is happening, especially the sexual link, because when you match with somebody, there is a connection that happens deeper than just us. So
Right.
there is a lot that we're bringing in, even besides the lineage that we are born into. So it's bigger, it's messy. So we get to
Sure.
look at this thing, because they inform what we are creating. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. And like you said, messy, and it's fascinating. Okay, well, I'm trying to think, where do I want to go from there? All right. So there's another piece of this. So we have the generational piece. Now let's bring in the inner child piece. So, because obviously that's an aspect that we all have. And, Carolyn Mace, I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but in her like work
Yeah.
with archetypes, she talks about the wounded child archetype, and how a lot of us will bring that forward into our adulthood and not even realize it. But again, like still carrying those traumas, those wounds with us. So can you talk a little bit about that inner child piece, and reconnecting with it as a tool for like healing of these relationships, and maybe even the relationship with ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah, and like you say, the wounded child and the wounds that are often, I would say that none of us actually gets to miss them. I talk about the four core wounds, which is abandonment, rejection, abuse, and betrayal. One or the other, as we go through life, navigating life, we come
Mhm.
across these wounds. But when you look at the inner child, this is also an aspect of ourselves that is born not knowing anything, is just trusting whatever that is being fed, and you take whatever that you take into that. And sometimes, especially a child is a part of us that is very sensitive, right? And it doesn't know much, and even the consciousness is not as developed. So whatever that happens, because especially when you talk about trauma, people think trauma is like a big thing. There are those big trauma, but at times it can be what I realized, it can be as simple as another parent working hard. Like I was working hard. I was a
Mhm.
single parent, was hardly there because I had to work, and at times I had to work weekends. And then the child has to hate this work, that I hate work because it's taking my parent away. And then the child grows up to not even like to work, and whatever stories that they create around that, or even about money. Like there is one client that I worked with who, for her, she saw a dysfunction of this breadwinner who was like the dominant toxic masculine, that is the father, and the mother was always small, and somehow she wanted to protect the mother, and she took all of her mother's stuff, and she resented the father,
Mm.
and it showed up in her life as the resentment of money you know and
Mhm.
it also affects either our masculine or feminine energy, depending on who holds that. Because even when you're talking about this energy, it's not about, okay, I'm a woman. If I'm a woman and I'm more functioning from the masculine, then I'm gonna be leading more from that, I would say, wounded masculine, even.
Right.
So an inner child is a part of us which, from what I've seen, it's connected to our vision, is connected to our pleasure, even curiosity, especially when you're talking about the changes that we are going through, the changes that are happening. So when we talk about what we truly desire, it's funny because I'm going to talk about, there is that connection to that sexual energy.
Mhm.
I'm talking about an inner child, you know. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like you can separate the two when you talk about an inner child. But funny enough, every time when a child comes to me, the child may bring something. Like the child may come through, like at times the child comes through first, screaming, crying, whatever that is happening. But it's also the child that gets to hold my hand and see what is happening to whether it's I'm working with someone, if there has
Mhm.
been sexual abuse, whatever that happened, the inner child is still holding into that. And even when I'm talking about inner child, at times we're just looking at this lifetime, what transpired in this lifetime, but it's bigger than that. I grew up as an angry child, and I looked at the dysfunction that was happening when I was growing up. Consciously, I thought, oh, it's what is happening here, and a lot of things that people do not want to talk about that makes me angry. Until one day, I was just sitting on a bed, and then this little voice came through. Do you want to know why I'm angry? I'm like, yeah. And that night, this inner child took me on a journey in another lifetime where I was molested by my father.
Mm.
Yeah. So when it comes to especially our sexual energy, it's kind of like the wounds, the pain that the inner child is holding into, and crying and all that. There is something beyond that, and you get to go through those pain for you to connect to the sexual energy. Because even when you're talking about sexual energy, our sexual energy is connected to our purpose, it's connected to our creativity, to our money. So until you feel safe in your body, that is your inner child feeling safe, that's when you can go and create as big as you want. You can connect deeply to your purpose. It's like it's the doorway that when she's safe, when he's safe, now it's like all the doors open. Let's go play. Because as
Yeah.
I was talking about also change, the desire is what is leading us when we're going through change. What is it that you desire, going through that inspiration? And the other thing is being willing to go through the whole evolution process, and also accepting that sometimes some things can be challenging, but for the soul, it's a dance because the soul is curious. That's one of the things, that curiosity, bringing in the curiosity. And who holds the curiosity when you're talking about going through some change and however we perceive them is the inner child. Because a child is an aspect of us that is curious. I mean, something might be pissing them, something happened, and then a little child cries. But on the other hand, you bring something that's kind of like the child is curious, like, what is that? There's a
Right.
beautiful colors there, So for you to navigate all the changes, all the emotional turmoil that we go through, it's through going through, looking through at life through the eyes of an inner child. That's when you
Yeah.
get to evolve much easier. You get to dance through the pain, but still find the joy that is there. Because children don't hold into stuff for a long time. And when you look at the relationships that we have as well, when we are disconnected from this aspect, it can sabotage us, because if you
Hmm.
don't give it attention, then you want to go and talk about being in love with a certain person. It's gonna like, you're gonna be in love with that person, but not with me. You're gonna want to be close and love your children, and yet I'm here. You are, so, and you'll see the relationship that we have with ourselves will play out with the relationship that we have with our children. Often even when we say, oh, my children are this and all that, when you are present enough, you realize that there's kind of like like what is happening, looking at it with my life. When I look at my children and I'm here as a mother, I'm taking that role of a mother and I'm looking at my children. There are times when I get to connect with my inner child through them. And at the same time, I get to connect with my mom and I get to perceive things where she was, where I was, where I get to understand that as a soul, which is also one of the things when I was going through that separation and I was told, you get to find your own path. These are souls on a mission. They are
Hmm.
your children. Of course, they were given to you to take care of them, but they don't belong to you. And when you look at it, as at times as parents, we think that we own these children, they belong to us. We personalize everything we think we have to know. But when you look at the whole parenthood thing, like when I look at myself now, with the way I just came, with the knowing, with an attitude, with everything, and looking at my mom, I was born when my mom was 40 and my father was 60. And looking at the age gap, even I'm just realizing that I was a different child, and I've
Hmm.
experienced that through my last born when she was born in 2017. I looked at this child, I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I have the capacity to raise this child. I don't know, that I'm telling you. I was just like, I don't know, because that child came through like she's enough to even cook for herself and all that, where you feel. And it's quite interesting because even when I was like there was also a lot of trauma that she was born with. And actually this is like the first child that I had that birth trauma. I even gave birth through cesarean, but the trauma that she held in her body, I was feeling it. Like every time I was holding this child, I felt like I want to hit a wall. I want to fight, just like it was a lot of energy that was coming through,
Mm.
trauma, anger, and all that. And at that point, I also get to understand that if you are not present enough, you can just act on this. This is why at times people are like, oh, my mother was bad, did this, my father, it's like it's all in there. And when you are not aware of whether is this mine or is the child and how to
Right.
navigate this, you're just gonna be led by what is happening and you don't know, why am I abusing this child or something like that. So it's a
Yeah.
bit mixed up, but it also determines the relationship that we get to have. Even when you talk about attracting a toxic partner, if we don't have that relationship, that is, we have not experienced that with our parent, we're gonna look. I mean, I dated my ex in my, like, the father of my children. My relationship, it was my father, until at some point I was in a meditation and I was angry with my ex-husband for the alcohol and all that. And the question that came through was, what part of you has a problem with his drinking? I'm like, what kind of question is that? Because when we talk about, especially in the spiritual path, it's kind of like, my way is the right way, it's perfect, I'm spiritual and all that. And then we look at other things like, that's negative, that's negative, that's negative, right? But
Yeah.
what part of me has a problem with him? At that point, I just had this download, the knowing that I don't have a problem with this man. I have a problem with my father. So the inner child was holding and hoping that I can save this man, the rescuer mask, which we often
Mhm.
play in relationship. They need me,
Mhm.
was hoping that I can rescue him. Maybe he can love me, because I didn't get the love that I needed from my father. My father passed on when I was 14. So now here I am, married to someone who is also emotionally unavailable. When I need him, like when I was at the hospital, going through that traumatic birth, separated with my daughter, he didn't come to the hospital. He was wherever he was with a bottle. That is an abandonment wound that came through. And I remembered that it was the second time that I was in the hospital and my partner did not come to the hospital, right? So it was still that generational trauma that is coming through. And that was the moment where, at the same time, I was called to become the parent that I needed for my inner child, instead of wanting or hoping a lover, a partner, a husband, a wife can take care of that. So
Yeah. So my next question is, so you've had the realization, you recognize the generational trauma within in this example, within yourself and your patterns. What do we do about it now? Like, is just the recognition enough, or is there more that we need to do, or is that like completely individual and up to each individual person?
I like to say awareness is great, and we're in an era where there is a lot of information. And the reason why we also don't evolve is we know too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know too much, but our life is not transforming. So even like, for instance, let's look at myself as a healer, right? And I was going through this process where I was being guided, and there were certain things that I was doing for myself. But I remember one word that came through from my higher self was always invest in yourself. And my first intuitive coach that I worked with, it just came through actually in a dream, and I was told, you need to invest. I think I was given $7,600 on yourself. And I was like, I woke up, what the heck does that mean? You know? And from there, I just had this desire. I started booking some calls, because at first I was kind of like jumping from one healer to the other, like doing those 1 hour session. But I was just told, you need to invest on yourself, and it's this much. And funny enough, I had a call booked with this other intuitive coach. And that particular day, I was supposed to get on a call. I was there waiting on a Zoom call. And then this woman I was in her group too. And she posted in a group, oh, I'm loving myself. I decided to cancel on a client, or to cancel a breakthrough call because she doesn't have money. Wow. So here I'm sitting on a break, waiting for her, and she's posting that.
Wow.
Yeah. So I felt that. I was like, wow. And with my pain, I left the Zoom room. I left this woman's group, and I waited for my call tomorrow. And this woman comes and she gives me the exact price that I was given. And I was like, wow. This is, when you are guided,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes things may happen that makes you
Yeah.
doubt yourself, think small, feel a certain way about yourself. But at times it's just like, this is not meant to happen. Maybe it was going to get in my way and I was going to run with that. But with what I was going through, I don't, and even when you're talking about being a coach or a healer, there is, and it's not, you can't work with some people at that level. It doesn't matter how much you think you know or how much you think you can read into people. I don't think she had the capacity as well to help me
Yeah.
go through what I was going through. And I was guided to this woman. So what do we do is we need to ask for help, because a jar cannot read itself. It can't read its instructions. So you need someone who can help you. But awareness is like half of the job done. But alone is not enough, especially if you don't get to the core. One thing, especially when you talk about, I'm big on embodiment. And why is that? Is because a lot of people do the work, but they do the work from, like, they're not in the body. So
Mm-hmm.
if I work with someone, let me say I didn't know how to bring people back in the body, and I just work with them, it doesn't mean what I'm doing is not working. But I'm working with someone who is not here in their body. It's kind of like I'm helping them,
You're still dissociated a little bit.
you know, you know.
Yeah.
So
Like,
yeah, it's not sustainable. Then it feels like I've been doing some work. It doesn't happen. And even if I, like, for instance, me, you are a healer, I'm a healer, and I get to work on myself, and you get to work on yourself. there is an attachment. There's an attachment, and at times even the wanting things to be a certain way also can get in the way of how things are meant to go. So asking for help I would say, is the best thing. That's all I can say here. Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. And like, there's self-work is amazing, and I think all of us, quote, healers, or like practitioners in the healing industry, realize the value of self-work. But we do need those guides, we do need that outside perspective, we need those mentors and other spiritual practitioners to like question us, to challenge us, to push us into the places maybe that we don't want to go, the shadow places,
Yeah.
in a safe space, in a loving and supporting space, so that we can reach that next level, and we can peel back that next layer of the onion and understand not only ourselves at a deeper level, but like the work you do, like understanding the impact of that generational trauma, or like even just the trauma that society puts on us within our genders, or there's so many, I feel like, different aspects and facets
Absolutely.
here. And then to bring in this next level that you work with, this sexual energy too. I mean, how powerful! Like this energy is the energy and the power of creation, right? It creates life. It has the potential to create life. And there's nothing more powerful in the universe than that, I don't think. I mean, there's creation and destruction. Like, equal opposite reactions. This is physics, people. But it's also
Yeah.
like divine creativity. So can you talk a little bit about that aspect and how that weaves and winds into your work?
Yeah. And actually, it's quite interesting because I never thought, I don't know, but somehow I never thought I'll be teaching this. But it just happened that one day I was just like doing a live session, and I'm just having this downloads because I can feel this turned on, this pleasure energy that is just coming through me. And I'm like, I'm talking about it at the same time while experiencing it. And from there, I'm like, what the heck is that? You know, and that's
Mhm.
when I kind of like started getting downloads about this work. But sexual energy, like you said, it's a creative energy. And I love that you brought the distraction part, because sometimes we love the creation, but we don't want to accept the distraction. But for us to create something, we get to destroy something. It's just part of creation. We can't run away from that. And as you said again, that sexual energy, honestly, even whatever is more valuable than anything that is out there. This is why when we look at the dark agendas, they use sexual energy. That's why sexual
Mm.
trafficking is still a big thing, because
Mhm.
they feed from this energy. When you look at some churches, I'm just gonna say it,
Mhm. Yeah.
they still use the sexual energy. When you look at the background of what is being displayed on the forefront, what is happening there, it's a lot that is happening around the sexual energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing. And even when you look at in the past about the sexual ritual and all that was happening, it's a powerful force of creation. It's also, like we said, it's our life force energy. It's the energy that makes you say yes to life. And it's funny because even when you look at so many things, like, I mean, you're a doctor. When you look at the medical system,
Mhm.
when someone has a problem, they're going through depression and all that. And I'm not saying get off your meds or anything. No, I'm just saying when I got this, I was blown away because I was just told, go Google what the antidepressant does to our sexual energy. So I started Googling,
Oh, yeah.
and I
It
was like,
completely,
wow.
like, deadens it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they produce all the feel good hormones in the brain. They don't produce it from the gut. So already there is that disconnection that is happening. And often people, when they are on this meds, you realize that your libido just dies slowly.
Mhm.
And that means you kind of like feel there's no need for you to continue living, even though you may feel good, but you are disconnected from life. And even when you're going through something, whether it's sexual abuse or anything that happens, there is a disconnection from life. This is why you kind of like continue like looking for something. Addiction is all the disconnection from the sexual energy. And when you look at it, even the religious system, you know, from the beginning, when you look at the whole story about Eve and then Adam and the snake, what is a snake? That's the sexual energy. That is the Kundalini
Mm-hmm.
energy, you know, but we are just being groomed from there to believe that this is bad, we are sinners, and it's also an energy that we get to use to satisfy man or just for procreation. We are not connected to it. So the darkness that is around it, the shame around it, is what is making it, because even when I talk about it, there are some times where women just come through flipping angry. You know, what about us who men cannot look at us twice? And can you imagine how twisted and crazy that is? Do you wake up in like, since we started having this feeling, that turned on energy, it's not something that happens because you are being told a man is looking at you. It's just something that happens naturally. It's our natural beingness. It doesn't matter what the size of our body, it doesn't matter what is happening with us, it's just natural. But we are not connected to this energy, and therefore we are disconnected from life. We are disconnected because from my experience, is also the energy that accelerates our evolution, spiritual evolution. You know, when you are connected to it, you live differently, you move differently, you are led by inspiration rather than desperation. You know, because I still remember when I was before I woke up to my truth. It doesn't mean that I wasn't sexually active. I was sexually active, but I didn't even know the sacredness of this energy. Even when it comes to the activity, it was more of, is he gonna have fun? Is he enjoying? Is he gonna love me after this? You know, my attention was not on me to say I'm gonna be present enough for me to enjoy this, but at the same time be mindful of what my partner needs at that time, the dance that happens, you know. And now I'm at a point where when I connect to something, when an idea comes through, I can feel, and this is also the thing, because it's bigger than whatever ideas that I'm gonna have, that is my true authentic soul desires. They're gonna scare the shit out of my human, you know, because I'm like, can I really do that? You know, because I thought less of myself, you know. I really do that. I still remember even when I was told you get to do this, and I was like, me, you know, because we think less of ourselves. So our dreams are bigger than what we're told to dream about. So you're gonna feel there's part of you that's gonna be excited. That is the energy of being turned on. That is you being led by something. I'm excited, but there's gonna be fear at the same time. So the question, are you willing to bring them on and just understand that the part of you that is afraid is the part of you that is used to playing small, but your soul is dancing to this opportunity. At times it can be even us going through something, like I was going through divorce. When I was going through divorce, oh my God, I've never felt the liberation, the joy that I felt the way I did. It was flipping crazy, the energy that was flowing through me. But at the end of the day, I didn't know, like, the human in me was shit scared, but there was joy that was coming through because I was more opening up to myself, to that freedom. Because when you look at the soul, at the soul level, the soul is freedom, right? So this is the energy that guides us, even if it's scary. But when you connect to your body, you'll be led by this turn on. And even our libido, because it doesn't matter whether it's not about, okay, fine, I'm gonna have sex, but you feel it when you are connected to that flow energy, when you're in that creative space. When you are present enough to feel in your body, you realize that there's a part of you that just feels horny. You know, it's that creative energy that is flowing through you. You are being turned on by whatever that you're doing. And you even forget that there are some things that you get to do. You lose yourself in that. And even when you're talking about the physical activity, when you are with someone who is fully attuned and can be fully present. And you don't have to say words. You are speaking at a soul level. The person knows when to touch you, when to increase the pace, when to slow down. It's like there is a whole conversation that is happening. You lose yourself in each other. It's a moment where there is nothing to defend. There is just that merging that happens deeper at a deeper level. And when you let go, because I love to say, intimacy loves honesty, openness, vulnerability, and trust, and even creation. It's like whatever that we get to create when it comes to our desires. This is the state that we get to be in, being open, being vulnerable, trusting. So we get to be in that state. So and at the same time, which brings us to intention, which is the highest form of consciousness. The question is, every time when you get to be at that level, when you open yourself at that level, what is your intention? What are you allowing in? Because this is the energy of multiplication. It doesn't matter where you take it. If at all you are focusing it on trying to get love by using your sexual energy, you're going to attract vampires who are just going to come, because it's also a healing energy, and they just want to come and swim in it and heal, and they go. And the question is, what are they living in you? Especially as women, our genitals are inside, so someone has to go inside and leave that seeds inside. So it goes even back to say, who have we been in touch with, and
Right.
what is happening, and where am I, and even our intention going forward. What am I willing to do with this energy? Because one thing that I realize, even with me, when I'm disconnected from this energy, I can see even whether it's flaw, whatever that is happening in my life is off. But when there is that block, it will start by showing through my sexual energy. It's kind of like there is that connection that wants to happen, but then it's kind of like dies off. I can feel like there is an energy that wants to come through. I'm feeling a little bit tender, and then it dies off. That's kind of like something that is telling me that there is something here that you need to look at, because you are not fully connected. You are not in touch with this energy, but when I'm in touch with it, it opens a lot to receive, to create. There is a flow that is happening, and you get to also be intentional with what you are attracting, and even who you are sharing it with, and what is the outcome that you want to receive from that. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Oh yeah. It's beautiful. It's so powerful. And I think, again, it's like so multidimensional that there's so much there that we definitely, I know, like in the Western world, don't really think about that much. I mean, I think that we're trained out of being in touch with our bodies at such a young age, and we're taught to dissociate. And then if you add a trauma on top of that, where now we willingly want to, like get out of our bodies and not experience that, or, like deal with the fallout, the emotional, the physical fallout, then, that's just, so it's like by the time we get to some sort of, like, I don't know how I want to say, like re-autonomy, like in our young adult stage, like where we're realizing that we do have control over our bodies, our minds, our spirit. We're so effing confused. And
absolutely,
we're like,
yeah,
we're like, well, which way do we turn now?
yeah.
And so I love this work that you're doing, like helping
And
people come. Yeah. So good. Sorry, go
I was
ahead.
also disconnected from this energy. I mean, I was called names, like I was called a bitch. I was told that I'll never finish my school before I even knew how to kiss a guy. But just because of who I was, there was an assumption about boys and all that.
Right.
So
And we
when that
internalize
happens,
that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
when that happens, it creates that shame around this energy. And then for a girl child comes a time, I think even for a boy child, the time when you're having your own wet dreams, how it's a conversation that is not had.
No, or we're
And
taught to be ashamed about it,
yeah,
like, yeah,
and
that
you
it,
start having your menstruation, which is
yeah.
still, it's quite interesting. I mean, I was not aware of this until I was in a session, and I started saying all this, and I'm like, what the heck? In my native language, we call blood is mad, money is mad.
Mm,
Like they both have the same, both have the same
interesting.
name,
Yeah.
and it's quite interesting because even like, for instance, it came through when I was working with another woman, and we're talking about blood, which is that's where life starts, that's where life begins, right? And even when you look at the whole creation, the creation of life, it starts with that, where
Mhm.
it's, and when it comes to our as women and our menstruation, there is part of some of us, there are points where it's kind of like you can't being a woman, like I wish I was not a woman, I shouldn't be bleeding and all that and all that. And because the body listens, the body can hear anything, everything. So we are saying all these things to ourselves. We disconnect without even being aware, or even when you're going through shit and you're like, you want out, the body already feels abandoned because you want out. And not even that, before we are even born, for some of us, I'm one of those people who didn't want to be here. I connected with an aspect of myself that was just crying like, I don't want to be born. So at that moment, even the body still feels that abandonment that is happening. And when I look at this, when I'm talking about blood and where everything is starting to happen, even when it comes to a baby, when it's just all that blood and all that, the truth of it is, I just truly believe you can't have it if you can't conceive it. Because when you look at the process of having a child, it's still the process of creation. And when
Mhm.
I know there is a lot of creation about visualization and all that, but it's visualization kind of like also just keeps us in the mind, and it's different when you feel it, when you are the embodiment of it, and I believe you, there are times when you feel it like I feel like a millionaire. I feel like a trillionaire. It's you can't it's just the
Yeah.
feeling that is there, and tell me how possible it is for you to come from feeling that to now create it, right? Because it's what you have within you, especially when you come back to yourself. It's still the same process of us conceiving when we have that baby within. And that is, especially when it's not a first child, even if it's your first child, you hear about all these labor pains and all that, and you're going to go through that process. But there is a part of you that is more excited about the outcome of it. So sexual energy is still the same thing, because at times for us to give birth to our soul desires, we get to go through a certain turmoil, turbulence, whatever that is happening. But when you are connected, when you connect with that, there is a part of you that just knows what is going to come through. And the pain and all the challenges that happens in life is those labor pains for you to give birth to this thing that you are yet, that wants to be expressed through you. So it's exciting when you are connected, because you can feel it, even though other people may doubt it. Because especially when you talk about going through following your purpose and all that, there are some people who'd go like, you flipping crazy, what are you talking about? But you know what you know, and you know what you know is truth. So the question is, are you willing to follow that desire and allow you to
Right.
guide you, which is also still connected to the emotion, because at times we are too much about the whole toxic positivity. I'm positive, instead of being and connecting to what is here. Because emotions are the evidence of life. At times, it can be an inner child who is afraid of the millions that you want to give birth to. At times, it's because of something that happened around that time. So, are you willing to listen to yourself and see why you feel that out of alignment? Because the reason why emotions are there, when you feel sad, grief, and all that, is because there is something that you are out of alignment. But it doesn't mean that it's, even when you talk about healing, at times it's kind of like, I'm just going to clear that and all that. It's not everything that needs to be cleared. At times it needs to be loved. Can you love the part of yourself that feels
Right.
unworthy, the part of yourself that is grieving something that you may not even understand? And what's coming through quickly is also even the words at the same time, whether it's positive or negative, they still keep us stuck in knowing something that we don't know. If I'm
Mhm.
feeling and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling sadness or grief, like it's kind of like I'm unlocking something. So grief, I'm supposed to be feeling sad, I'm supposed to be crying and all that. But when you just observe that and not giving it a name, or just allowing it and letting it be whatever that is, because at times I'm aware that there are times when I'm feeling, sometimes I can feel like deep gratitude, but at the same time, when I feel this gratitude, I feel at the same time deep grief, and it's beautiful. But when I go out of what I'm experiencing, the beauty that comes with this, and try to go into my mind of what sadness means, it's like sadness is taking something from the gratitude or the love that is here. You understand? So when you just allow it to be what it is without naming it or anything, it becomes beautiful. I don't even know how we got here.
Yeah. I was gonna interrupt you, but I was like, no, she's on one. I'm gonna let her go. Oh man, that was beautiful. And so many aspects that are so true. And so that's what I've loved about everything that you've said today is that I feel like you've brought, again, that awareness. And I think people forget, like we get so focused, especially like in spiritual practice, about all the things that are out here. And for those, there won't be a visual for this episode, but like I'm sort of like waving my hands through my aura and like the out here, like what's in the ether. But to bring the healing into the body, to create manifestation, we have to, like you said, we're physical beings and spiritual beings. And so we have to learn to merge those. And I think that's part of sort of our sacred and soul contract for choosing to be humans here in this life on this planet during this time, especially, is like learning to really be the oneness, to create that unification and that oneness, bring our ideas through those upper chakras and into the heart space, through the throat, to talk about them, and really, those lower chakras of creation and manifestation. So fantastic, so fascinating, so much power and potential. I'm really excited for your work. Tell everyone where they can find you and how to work with you.
Thank you. Gao Motsemme is my name. Is GaoMotsemme. I'm available in LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So come join me. I would also give Dr. Lara a Calendly link as an intro to my work. This is just like an introduction where you get to know how I work. Like I say, I work with the body. So when you come join me, we'll see what is going to come through. For some people, it's a physical pain, emotional pain. For some people, it's mental. Sometimes it's an inner child that is coming through. Sometimes it's generational patterns. So we're just going to have a conversation and see what you'd want to desire, because that's what I love to do. What do you want to desire? And what does your body say? Because at times you want something and you've been pushing to get that, but you are not aware of where the conflict is, especially between the mind, body, and heart. So just to bring that to your awareness, and what you want to do with it, it's up to you. Whether you want to take it further with me or not, I would have done my part. So that's my invite to you, and I'll give Dr. Lara the booking link.
Yes. And then all your social links too, they'll be in the show notes, and
Yes.
and all of our social media promotions. So again, thank you so much. This was a beautiful conversation, and I appreciate you and the work you're doing in the world. So thank you so much, everybody. And make sure to head over to the show notes page or on our social media posts to find these links so you can work with her and do this exciting work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.